So I'd love to ask you a question about a point that we talked about earlier about getting the body to a place where it is craving its natural amount of calories, right? We talked about the distribution right now. So getting back to that place, you mentioned like take like 3 more on the 6 month end because it would take time depending on where people are starting from.
Correct.
And you mentioned that the basically that 6 months is the rewiring of the brain ultimately, right? Until it kind of gets used to eating this new type of food. What do people do during that 6 months? Meaning they transition from potentially eating oil, animal products, maybe some processed food to eating, more whole food, more variety, more of the foods that we just talked about. But we talked about the brain needing that caloric rush, right? So you talked about like true hunger and fake hunger. Right. They're probably going to have a lot of fake hunger throughout that 6 months. So is the game plan to just, suffer through it, deal with it, or is there tools and strategies to kind of help people cope while the brain kind of rewires itself?
Okay, all good questions. Let's try to break that down. The most discomfort is in the first couple of weeks, particularly the first week. So the toxic hunger and the feelings of withdrawal lessen as you go along. So a person comes in to see me or stay at my retreat in San Diego, and they may come in here and be drinking whiskey and fast food. I've had people come in, they're drinking 3 glasses of whiskey a day, And so when they start eating this diet, they feel like they want to die. They're headachy, they're sick, they're vomiting. I just had a person yesterday who's been here a week, a man, and he had abdominal muscular cramping in his abdomen. It was so painful, that they're going through withdrawal from their drug, from their food, the drug-like effective unhealthy food, right? The worse they eat, the worse they suffer from when they first change their diet, right?
Yeah.
But I warn them in advance that don't worry about if you're feeling bad the first week, because by the second week, those symptoms lessen so much, you're going to be feeling okay. It's only going to be uncomfortable the first week. It doesn't mean they're in touch with true hunger, and they may still get toxic hunger with a little fatigue between meals, but it's not going to be so painful anymore. The headaches are going to go away, and the stomach fluttering may take longer to go away, but those are light symptoms. They're not powerfully uncomfortable symptoms. So you're not that uncomfortable later in the first month or month 2 or 3, even though you didn't quite feel true hunger yet. You have to lose more body fat and have more nutrient density. We measure people's nutrient density on their skin to see their skin carotenoid score for where they're starting from at 20,000. And we know that after eating so healthfully for 3 or 4 months, their levels are still not good. 3 or 4 months of eating do not get their level of nutrients in their tissues to normalize to the levels of you or I are at. It may take them 6, 7, 8 months to get their levels close to where we are, of eating healthfully. That's why we're sometimes giving them an extra glass of vegetable juice, especially if they have a medical problem or cancer. We don't want to wait 6 months to get the level of nutrients up. We want to get the level of nutrients quicker. So we're giving them some juicing or something to get more, vegetable calories into them. But what I'm saying right now is that when they're in that white belt phase, they feel ill when they eat healthfully. That's when they need enforced abstinence and the most help. Telling them, don't take Tylenol, don't take Motrin, don't drink coffee, don't salt your food, go through the detox. You'll pass through the detox quicker. Over the years, and I mentioned earlier, one of the changes in how I treat people compared to what I did 20 years ago is that I find a higher degree of compliance and better effects at long-term success if the person jumps in to 100% rather than baby stepping their way in and doing the cheat diet. My first book was Fasting and Eating for Health, but my second book, which was such a powerful bestseller, called Eat to Live, which many people heard of. In that book, I kept people on a strict diet for the first 6 weeks, but then I allowed them to follow it 90% and still have 10% off the diet if they wanted to after the first 6 weeks that they accomplished. And the negative part of that was, over the years, I've seen so many hundreds of people where that 10% sabotaged them. It's like telling the alcoholic they can go to the bar on the weekend and drink once in a while. What happened, it kept lighting the fire under this person's addictive desires. And it kept triggering their desire to want to eat those foods and to have a bagel and to have a pizza. And they never left the desire of wanting bagels and pizzas and sweets and ice cream was perpetuated by their constantly having them. And I've found over the years that for the real food addict who has to lose a lot of weight, we have a higher chance of long-term success if I can convince them to continue to abstain from those foods. Because instead of kind of triggering their desire for them, they now, and always being stressed, deciding what they should eat and what they should not eat, and being guilty when they have it, by jumping in with both feet, they start to see miraculous benefits. Their diabetes goes away in the first 2 weeks. Their headaches are gone now. They're feeling better. The weight is pouring off them at such a rapid rate. They're feeling more energized, and they're not sabotaging their results. Because I'll give you an example. One guy comes into my facility, and he loses weight at about 1 pound a day. He's losing, on day 10, he loses 10 pounds. On day 15, he loses 15 pounds. On day 18, he loses 18 pounds. Now, he's not losing all fat. They're losing water weight, because when they're getting rid of toxins, the body doesn't need to hold on to so much water, and they're not as acidic, so your body doesn't need to swell the fat supply to be a garbage dump. So part of the fat supply is excess fluid the fat is holding on to. So he loses 18 pounds in the first 18 days. And on the 18th day, that evening, he goes down with Steve, who's my house manager, to a vegan singles dance in New York City, because this is in New Jersey. They were in New Jersey at the time. And he eats a corn muffin and some macaroni salad, all vegan, but it had some mayonnaise in it. Comes back the next morning, gains 3 pounds. 3 pounds from a little corn muffin and some macaroni salad? Well, yeah, his body put back fluid again, you know? And he didn't get that 3 pounds off for the next 5 days. It took him 5 days or a week to get those 3 pounds off, meaning he had a week with no weight loss, 0 weight loss. Because how many of these people say to you, I'm doing the program, I'm following it, I'm doing just what you said, but I'm not losing any weight. Well, let me see what you're eating. Okay, you were following it, but you didn't do it here, you didn't do it there. 3 times during the week. That meal you had oil, that meal you had salt, that way you had white flour. You know, you sabotaged your results. So we see people when they come to our facility and do it 100%. It's like amazing what the results are when you do it 100%. And it's amazing that when the people stay, we train them and give them the tools they need to be able to follow this when they go home. And that's why we don't fast them, do water fasts or juice fasts or too strong or intermittent fasting, because when they're a food addict and you restrict calories too much, then they food obsess. The next month, they can't get food out of their mind, and they're going to binge and re-trigger eating, and they slow the metabolic rate too far down, and we see a less chance of long-term successful results. Is measured by how much weight did you lose at the end of the year. If you had 50 or 100 pounds to lose, your success isn't determined by how much weight you lost the first month. The weight is determined by where are you after a year. If I put you on a fast and you lose 30 pounds the first month, that's irrelevant if you gained it back or might have more weight a year later. So we're talking about where does that person, what do they weigh a year later? And are they keeping that off for the next 5 years? You know what I mean? And we found that we enhance the person's long-term outcome if we're scientifically designing their most favored caloric window to stay with long-term, and they give themselves time for their taste muscle to change. They learn the recipe so their food preferences change, and they stay with it long enough so their hunger signals change, and they're able to stay with it and feel good about it and be consistent with it long term.